Huge things are happening right now, and for the first time ever, we could actually be seeing the Titan Pantheon on the world of Azeroth. With Iridikron's recent plans, he seems to want to get revenge on them and to complete what the old gods had started. Seeing that they have been weakened, they could potentially arrive in their form. Now, even more interestingly, we have hints of the Burning Legion coming, we have Xal'atath and the Void Lords most likely coming, and we also have the Light. So if we get the Titans, are we literally in for the most ridiculous scenario of all time? Are we just going to get one huge battlefield on Azeroth? What is even going on? If you guys want to buy Total War, Elder Scrolls, or any other game, you can get them at great prices with my Gamivo link. You can also get anything Warcraft related, gift cards and software, and all below market prices. Best of all, if you add my code DORON, you can get an even bigger discount, so make sure to check out my link in the description and get some amazing deals with Gamivo. First off, before talking about the very likely return of the Titans, you may be wondering, but how could they return? Aren't the Titans dead? And the answer is not really. This much we had known since Legion, but their lore has been quite obscure and never really fully explained. In the ages past, when Sargeras fully betrayed them, he completely obliterated their physical forms. Then, they were protected by a spell and tried to enter the Keepers on Azeroth, but that failed as well. Ultimately in Legion, we learned that Sargeras managed to get most of their souls, and he tried to create a new Dark Pantheon, with him almost succeeding through Agramar. Then they managed to recreate themselves, and ultimately with Argus imprisoned Sargeras at the seat of the Pantheon only a few years back. All of you guys had seen that. So, to answer the question, the Titans are indeed alive. Probably not alive in their full form, and might, and very likely significantly weakened as their physical forms were destroyed, which is exactly why Iridikron is feeling so confident of waiting for them once they return. He wouldn't wait for the Titans like 10,000 or thousands of years back. Keep in mind, the Titans originally were ridiculously powerful, like mind-blowingly powerful, like couldn't even step into Azeroth powerful. Sargeras, back when he was a Titan, managed to split an entire world with his sword in one single swing. Amantul managed to pull out Y'Shaarj, the strongest old god on Azeroth, like it was nothing, like if he was just a weed in the ground. However, now they have been sort of recreated. They could be something more akin to just powerful beings, not mortals, but possibly stronger than the Keepers, and maybe around the strength of the old gods, which means that Iridikron and Xal'atath could definitely stand a chance against him. However, why would the Titans return, and what are all the hints that we currently have? So all throughout Dragonflight, we've been getting hints of the Titans not being the nice guys that we used to believe they were. Personally, I don't think this is that much of a contradiction, because the Titans weren't ever really portrayed as the ultimate benevolent saviors. Sure, they were to the Titanforge that were created by them, so it was their propaganda, but their ambiguity has been sort of obvious since the start. They had Algalon the Observer in Ulduar back in Wrath of the Lich King that would trigger the entire destruction of the world just so that their enemy couldn't get Azeroth, the World Soul. They didn't care one bit about the entirety of life just being wiped out in a split second as well. From what we had known, the entire point of life and all the things they built, all the facilities on Azeroth, was to serve a purpose, their purpose of order, and converting the World Soul of Azeroth into a Titan and raising it as one of their own. This has been evident with the recent documents of them using the Titan Forge just as a workforce, some of them rebelling, and then by having their keepers such as Tyr converting dragons and just using them as experiments. We had seen that recently in the newest Vyranaut cinematic, where we kinda learn what has been going on. We previously learned that Tyr had essentially corrupted the eggs, turned them into Titan beings, although he would call this more akin to upgrading or enhancing them or protecting them from evil influence from a Titan perspective. Vyranaut and the Primalist saw this as a complete atrocity, and looks like Alexstrasza played a part in this, as she said. That abhorrent act should have never happened, and I regret my part in it every day. So obviously, it is implied that this was something the Titans had forced upon the dragons, which really goes in line with the fact that the Primalists do have a point, although they might have taken that point way too far. This also perfectly goes in line with everything Iridikron has been saying throughout the expansion and the latest cinematic. He managed to travel back in time and use the artifact of Deathwing he stole from Aberrus, and he collected the essence of Galakrond within it and is bringing it back. We've learned that it has been confirmed that he's working with Xal'atath, that she has been that secret ally that we've actually personally helped in the past, which I gotta say is a pretty genius move from Blizzard's part. We've also learned that the Harbinger is bringing Queen Azshara and potentially other beings of the Void, which strongly signifies a new Void expansion. However, that is not even the most interesting part. The most interesting part is that Iridikron apparently is planning to lure the Titans and to ultimately defeat them. See, Iridikron is like the embodiment of revenge. personally, I don't think he even cares all that much about restoring back the original order or turning the dragons primal. He just wants to defeat the Titans to spite them because they brought so much bad to him, and he's willing to do whatever it takes. At the moment, we can't really say for certain what will happen, but we do have some really strong hints. Iridikron says that he plans to use the essence of Galakrond and the artifact to more than likely corrupt the world soul of Azeroth. Based on the Zelda documents we can found, the plan is to finish up the process of turning Azeroth into a being of the void. Based on the documents, it is implied that the old gods almost succeeded in doing their job, but were stopped by the Titans, and the Titans probably never managed to reverse this corruption, so now they just need that one last bit to complete the ritual. Since Galakrond was an old god creation, this has been confirmed, it is likely that his essence has just enough old god influence to finish up this process and to wrap it up. So if this scenario is the case, Iridikron's plans to do that is what will bring the Titan Pantheon for the first time on Azeroth. Initially, as we had known, they were too big, so they couldn't even come in, but since they have been significantly weakened, they might just now be able to actually enter Azeroth. As Iridikron says he'll be waiting once the Titans come to claim their prize, it is heavily implied that this prize is obviously the World Soul of Azeroth. Now, the Titans care about the World Soul of Azeroth more than they care about anything else in the entire universe. I'm guessing to them it is the most powerful Titan, and if turned to the Void, it is ultimately the enemy of order. If the corruption was imminent, they would have no choice but to interfere themselves personally, which means we could literally be seeing them in person on Azeroth quite soon. However, what I think is even more mind-blowing is that if you followed my previous video, we have hints of the Dreadlords trying to recreate the Burning Legion, and they're just now fiddling on Azeroth. We potentially have the Natrius, the Force of Death, behind this as well. We've been getting some light hints, we've data mined some corrupted Dark Naru. Could literally all these 6 cosmological forces just come on Azeroth to try to lay their claim on the World Soul, and are we just going or heading straight for the most ridiculous timeline of just all time? This might be exactly where the newly introduced First Ones step in, and we learn what they are exactly. It was said in the ancient past that before the First Ones created the Order with all those crazy Zerets and these little structures, all the cosmological forces just battled each other in something akin to like a free-for-all. It was just overall chaos. Maybe this is what the Jailer saw, this ridiculous free-for-all coming on Azeroth once again, and he tried to claim the World Soul before it happens for the Death Realm, but ultimately, as you know, he failed. To make matters even more ridiculous, if the Titan Pantheon leaves and diverts all their strength to Azeroth, we could be seeing Sargeras being freed, and that could open a whole different can of worms. When you think about it, he could have actually been the original, the first Jailer. He could have also realized that this ridiculous battle is going to be coming, this is what is to come, and he tried to end the World Soul before that happens, but just like Zobal, he failed. So this new storyline could involve his sword being relevant that Blizzard has constantly been referencing. Maybe he left it there for a reason to return to it later. Is Sargeras going to rebuild the Legion, fight for the Titan Pantheon, join us against the Void Lords, or just fight for himself? This in turn could potentially involve Illidan. The scenarios are, I mean, just literally endless. I mean, this would also be just crazy ridiculous. It could really go either way. I know this is just way too far in speculation, but seriously, by the way Blizzard is setting up the story, currently we could be going into some of the most ridiculous timelines on Azeroth, like the most ridiculous ever. Thank you for watching. Check out the Undead Restoring Lordaeron by clicking on the screen, and also check out my second channel for videos on Real World history and mythology. See you next time!